It was a quiet night in the small town of Maplewood. The stars sparkled in the sky, and a gentle breeze rustled the leaves of the trees. Emily, an 18-year-old girl, loved to take evening walks. She enjoyed the calmness and the beauty of nature. She often felt peaceful under the night sky. On this particular night, Emily wore her favorite blue hoodie and comfortable sneakers. She stepped outside her house, took a deep breath, and began her walk. The streetlights cast a soft glow on the sidewalk, guiding her path. As she walked, she thought about her day. It had been a normal day filled with school and homework, but now she felt free. Suddenly, something strange happened. A bright light appeared in the sky. At first, Emily thought it was an airplane, but the light grew larger and brighter. She stopped walking and looked up. Her heart started to race. The light was not an airplane. It was something else. Before she could think, the light engulfed her. Emily felt a warm sensation surround her, and then everything went dark. It was as if the night had swallowed her whole. She tried to scream, but no sound came out. In a blink, she was lifted off the ground, and she felt weightless. When Emily opened her eyes again, she found herself in a strange place. The air was cool, and the ground felt different. She looked around and gasped. She was inside a spaceship. The walls were shiny and silver, covered with strange symbols that she did not understand. Bright lights flickered overhead, casting unusual shadows. Panic set in. Emily realized she was not alone. She saw 3 aliens standing in front of her. They were tall and green, with large eyes that seemed to glow. Their skin was smooth, and they had long limbs. They looked at her with curiosity and confusion. Emily felt small and scared. "What do they want from me?" she thought. The aliens began to talk among themselves in a language she could not understand. Their voices were strange and high-pitched. Emily tried to listen closely, hoping to catch a word or two, but it was no use. As she watched them, she felt a mix of fear and anger. "I have to get out of here," she thought. The aliens seemed to be discussing her, pointing at her and making gestures. Emily knew they were planning something. She took a deep breath, trying to calm herself. Suddenly, one of the aliens stepped forward. It reached out a long, slender hand toward her. Emily stepped back, heart pounding. She was not going to let them take her without a fight. She quickly scanned the room for anything she could use. To her right, she spotted a metal tool lying on the ground. It looked heavy, and she decided to grab it. As the alien moved closer, Emily picked up the tool. "Stay back," she shouted, her voice shaky but determined. The aliens stopped in their tracks, surprised by her sudden bravery. They had expected her to be afraid, but she was ready to fight. The alien that had approached her raised its hands, as if to show it meant no harm. But Emily wasn't going to trust them. She could feel the adrenaline coursing through her veins. "What do you want from me?" she demanded, her voice stronger now. The aliens exchanged glances, looking uncertain. Emily took a step forward, brandishing the tool. "I won't let you do anything to me," she shouted. The aliens seemed to be confused by her words and her spirit. They were used to capturing beings who simply gave up. Just then, a loud alarm blared through the spaceship. Red lights flashed all around them, making everything look even more chaotic. The aliens turned their attention to the control panels on the walls. Emily took advantage of the distraction. She realized this was her chance. Without thinking twice, she ran toward a nearby door. The aliens shouted and chased after her, their voices echoing in the spaceship. Emily felt her heart racing as she pushed through the door. She had no idea where it would lead, but she knew she had to get away. The door opened into a narrow corridor. The walls were lined with strange, glowing symbols, and the air felt cool against her skin. Emily dashed down the corridor, her feet pounding against the metal floor. Behind her, she could hear the aliens getting closer. They were determined not to lose their prize. Emily knew she had to think fast. She glanced around and saw a control panel on the wall. Maybe she could find a way to stop them, or at least slow them down. She hurried to the panel and started pressing buttons, hoping something would work. To her surprise, the spaceship shuddered. The lights flickered, and she felt a strange sensation in the air. What did I just do? She wondered. But there was no time to think. She needed to escape. Strange surroundings. Emily ran down the narrow corridor, her heart racing. She could still hear the aliens shouting behind her, but she pushed herself to go faster. The walls of the spaceship glowed with strange symbols, lighting her path. She felt lost in this weird world, but knew she had to keep moving. As she turned a corner, she stumbled into a large room. The walls were even stranger here, covered in shiny screens showing images of different planets. Emily stopped for a moment, mesmerized. She had never seen anything like this before. The screens flickered, displaying colorful pictures of alien landscapes, creatures, and star systems. It was beautiful yet frightening. Where am I? She whispered to herself, feeling both amazed and scared. Suddenly, the loud voices of the aliens snapped her back to reality. They were getting closer. She couldn't stay here. She had to find a way to escape. Emily searched the room for an exit. In the corner, she spotted a door, slightly ajar. Without thinking, she dashed toward it, her breath quickening. As she reached for the door, she heard a loud bang behind her. The aliens had entered the room, and they were furious. "Stop her!" one of the aliens shouted, pointing at her. Emily pushed through the door and found herself in another corridor. This one was wider and more brightly lit, filled with strange machines and tools. She couldn't tell what any of them did, but they all looked high-tech and dangerous. Emily paused for a moment, trying to catch her breath. She was in a spaceship full of aliens, and she had no idea how to get back home. But as she looked around, she also felt a spark of determination. She refused to be a victim. She would fight for her freedom. She moved cautiously through the corridor, listening carefully for any signs of the aliens. Every sound made her jump. Just then, she noticed a door on her left. It was different from the others, heavier and made of metal. She pushed it open and stepped inside. This new room was unlike anything she had ever seen. There were cages along the walls, each holding a different creature. Some looked like animals from Earth, while others were completely alien. They all stared at her with wide eyes, and Emily felt a pang of sympathy. "Are you okay?" she asked one of the creatures, a small furry being with big ears. It nodded slowly, looking frightened. Emily realized that she was not the only one who had been captured. "I'll help you," she promised, but first, she needed to find a way out. As she walked further into the room, Emily found a control panel in the center. It was filled with buttons and screens, all flashing with different colors. She hesitated for a moment, unsure of what to do, but she knew she had to try. Maybe she could release the creatures and create a distraction. Emily reached for the panel and started pressing buttons at random. The lights on the screens changed, and a loud beeping noise filled the air. Suddenly, she saw one of the cages open. The creature inside darted out and ran for the door. "Wait," Emily called, but the creature was already gone. She felt a rush of excitement. "Maybe this will work," she thought. Encouraged, she pressed more buttons, and more cages opened. Different creatures began to escape, some running toward her and others fleeing in different directions. Just then, the aliens appeared at the door, their faces twisted with anger. "What have you done?" one of them yelled, pointing at the chaos. Emily's heart raced as she realized the aliens were no longer focused on her. They were now trying to catch the escaped creatures. "Now's my chance," Emily thought. She took a deep breath and bolted toward the door. As she ran past the aliens, she could hear their shouts of frustration. The creatures she had freed added to the chaos, running past the aliens and causing confusion. Emily dashed down the corridor, her mind racing. Where should I go now? She wondered. She remembered the images on the screens earlier. Maybe there was a way to navigate this spaceship, a map or something to help her find an escape route. She continued running, hoping to find another room with more controls or information. As she turned another corner, she stumbled into a large observation deck. The walls were made of transparent glass, and she could see the stars shining brightly outside. The view was breathtaking, but there was no time to admire it. In the center of the room, she saw a large console filled with buttons, much like the one she had used before. Emily ran to it, her fingers trembling with excitement. If she could figure out how to control the ship, maybe she could steer it back to Earth. Emily studied the console, pressing a few buttons. The screens lit up, showing a map of the ship and nearby planets. "I need to find Earth," she muttered to herself, her heart pounding. Suddenly, the aliens burst into the room, and Emily froze. They had finally caught up with her. "You will pay for this," one of them shouted. Emily's mind raced. She had to think fast. With the aliens closing in, Emily quickly pressed a series of buttons, hoping to activate the ship's systems. The lights around her flickered, and the ship shuddered. This might be it, she thought, but she was ready to fight. As the aliens lunged at her, Emily felt a surge of courage. She was not just a girl anymore. She was a warrior fighting for her freedom. First fight. The room was tense. Emily stood by the console, her heart racing as the aliens moved closer. They looked furious, their large eyes narrowing as they prepared to grab her. She felt a surge of fear, but quickly pushed it aside. This was her chance to fight back. "Stay back," she shouted, her voice louder than she expected. The aliens paused, surprised by her determination. Emily took a step back, ready to defend herself. She could not let them take her again. Suddenly, one of the aliens lunged at her. It moved fast, but Emily was faster. She ducked to the side and grabbed a metal rod from the floor. It was heavy and cold in her hands. She could feel the weight of it, and it gave her strength. "Come on," she yelled, holding the rod like a weapon. The alien stumbled and turned to face her. It looked confused, as if it had never seen a human fight back. Emily saw her chance and swung the rod with all her might. It hit the alien on the arm with a loud thud. The alien let out a strange noise, a mix of surprise and pain. It stepped back, clutching its arm. Emily felt a rush of excitement. She could do this. She was not just a scared girl. She was a fighter. "Get her," another alien shouted, and they both charged at her. Emily quickly sidestepped to avoid them, her instincts kicking in. She had played sports at school, and now she used those skills to move quickly and avoid their grasp. With a swift motion, she swung the rod again. This time, she aimed for the second alien. The rod connected with its side, and the alien cried out. It stumbled and fell to the ground, momentarily dazed. "Keep going," Emily encouraged herself, adrenaline pumping through her veins. She could feel the power of the moment. She was in control now, and she refused to give it up. The first alien, still recovering, tried to get back on its feet. Emily quickly turned her attention back to it. She raised the rod again, ready to strike, but just as she was about to swing, she remembered the other creatures she had seen earlier. They need help too, she thought. If she could keep the aliens busy, maybe they could escape as well. With a quick glance around the room, Emily saw that the control panel was still lit up. She had to think strategically. Instead of attacking, she decided to use the console to her advantage. Maybe she could cause a distraction or even gain control of the ship. "Stay away from me," Emily shouted again, trying to sound brave. She stepped toward the console, pretending to focus on the buttons. The aliens hesitated, unsure of what she would do next. Emily's mind raced as she pressed random buttons, hoping for something useful. To her surprise, the ship's lights flickered again. The screens changed, showing a view of the stars outside. "What is she doing?" "Yes, please. I want to go home," Ziri said, its voice filled with hope. Emily felt a wave of relief. She wasn't alone anymore. They could work together to find a way out. "All right, Ziri," Let's stick together, Emily said, standing up. We need to be careful. The aliens are looking for me, and they might find us. Zuri nodded again, its small body shaking slightly with fear. As they left the room, Emily felt a sense of determination. She had made a friend, and they would help each other. Together, they moved quietly down the corridor, trying to avoid any noise. Where do we go now? Zuri asked, glancing around. Emily thought for a moment. We need to find a control room, or something that can help us escape, she replied. Maybe we can figure out how this ship works. As they walked, they came across a series of doors, each marked with strange symbols. Emily pointed to the door at the end of the hall. Let's try that one, she suggested. Zuri nodded, and they approached cautiously. When they reached the door, Emily turned the handle and pushed it open. Inside was a large room filled with strange machines and glowing screens. Emily's heart sank a little. It looks complicated, she admitted, staring at the controls. But Zuri didn't seem scared. Maybe I can help, it said, jumping up with excitement. I've seen these machines before. I can read some of the symbols. Emily felt a rush of hope. You can? She asked, surprised and grateful. Yes. I may be small, but I'm clever, Zuri said confidently. Emily smiled at her new friend. All right, let's see what you can do. They entered the room, and Zuri jumped onto a chair in front of a large console. Emily watched as Zuri carefully examined the buttons and screens. The little alien's fingers moved quickly, pressing buttons and reading the symbols. This one says, navigation, Zuri exclaimed, pointing to a screen that showed a map of the ship. Can you show me how to get back to Earth? Emily asked eagerly. Zuri concentrated hard and pressed another button. The screen zoomed out, showing the ship and several planets nearby. We are here, Zuri pointed at a small dot. And Earth is over there. It pointed to a distant blue planet on the map. Emily felt a surge of excitement. That's it. We need to get there, she exclaimed. But how do we drive this ship? Zuri looked at the buttons again, its little face serious. We need to activate the engine. But I think it requires a key code, it said, sounding worried. Without that, we cannot go anywhere. Emily frowned. A key code? Where do we find that? Maybe in the main control room, Zuri suggested. That's where they control everything. It might be dangerous, but it's our best chance. Emily took a deep breath. Okay, let's do it. We can't stay here forever. They quickly made their way back to the corridor, moving cautiously to avoid any aliens. As they walked, Emily felt more confident with Zuri by her side. They were a team, and they would find a way to escape together. Suddenly, they heard a loud noise coming from behind them. Quick, hide, Emily whispered. They ducked into a small alcove just as two aliens rushed past, their voices angry. She cannot escape, one shouted. Emily's heart raced as she held her breath, praying they wouldn't find them. Once the aliens were gone, Emily and Zuri stepped out of hiding. That was close, Emily whispered, her heart still pounding. Zuri nodded, its big eyes wide with fear. Let's hurry, Zuri urged, and they continued down the corridor. Emily felt a mixture of fear and excitement. With Zuri by her side, she was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Sabotaging the ship. Emily and Zuri hurried through the dark corridors of the alien ship, their hearts racing. They knew they had to find the main control room to get the key code and take control of the ship. As they moved, Emily felt a mix of fear and excitement. They were so close to their goal. Do you think we can really do this? Emily asked Zuri, glancing at her small friend. Zuri looked up with determination in its big eyes. Yes, we can do this together. We are strong, it replied with a confident nod. They reached a large door marked with strange symbols. This must be it, Emily exclaimed. She pushed the door open slowly, and they stepped inside. The room was massive, filled with blinking lights and strange machines. The atmosphere was charged with energy. At the far end of the room was a large control panel. Emily felt a surge of hope. "That's where we need to go," she said, pointing. But as they moved forward, they heard footsteps approaching. "Hide," Emily whispered, pulling Zuri behind a large machine. They crouched low, their hearts pounding. 2 aliens entered the room, their voices angry. "We have to find that human girl," one alien shouted. "She cannot escape." Emily's heart sank. They were searching for her, and time was running out. As the aliens moved closer to the control panel, Emily realized she had to act fast. "We can't let them see us," she whispered to Zuri. "We need a plan." Zuri looked thoughtful. "Maybe we can create a distraction. If we make noise, they will leave the control panel." Emily nodded. "Good idea. But how do we make a distraction?" She scanned the room, looking for anything they could use. Then she spotted a stack of metal containers near the wall. "I can throw one of those," she said, pointing to the containers. "It will make a loud noise and draw them away." Zuri's eyes lit up. "Yes, let's do it." Emily carefully climbed to her feet, still crouched low. She picked up one of the heavy containers and took a deep breath. With all her strength, she hurled it across the room. The container crashed into a wall, making a loud bang. The aliens immediately turned around, startled. "What was that?" one shouted. "Let's check it out." They rushed toward the sound, leaving the control panel unguarded. "Now's our chance," Emily whispered, and she and Zuri dashed to the control panel. They quickly scanned the buttons and screens. "Where do we find the key code?" Emily asked, feeling overwhelmed. "I think it's on this screen," Zuri replied, pointing at a display that showed different ship systems. "It says engine control. If we can access it, we might find the code." Emily nodded and started pressing buttons. The screen lit up, showing a series of numbers and letters. "I see something," she exclaimed. "There's a key code here, but we need to enter it to unlock the engine." Zuri jumped onto a nearby chair to get a better view. "I can help. Let's do it together." It pointed at the numbers, guiding Emily on what to press. Emily typed in the code, her fingers shaking with excitement. "Is this right?" she asked, glancing at Zuri. "Yes, just a little more." Zuri encouraged her. Finally, Emily pressed the last button. The screen flashed green, and a message appeared. "Engine unlocked." They'd both cheered softly. "We did it," Emily whispered, feeling a wave of triumph. But their celebration was short-lived. The aliens returned, looking furious. "They're in here," one shouted, pointing at Emily and Zuri. "Get them." Panic surged through Emily. "We need to hurry," she yelled. "What do we do now?" Zuri looked around frantically. "Maybe we can sabotage the ship. If we can make it stop, they won't be able to follow us." Emily nodded, realizing Zuri was right. "Let's find something we can use." They scanned the room for anything that might help. Emily spotted a large lever labeled self-destruct. "Should we pull that?" she asked, her heart racing. Zuri hesitated but then nodded. "Yes, it might create chaos and give us time to escape." With no time to waste, Emily ran to the lever. She pulled it down with all her strength. Alarms blared and red lights flashed throughout the room. The aliens screamed in confusion as the ship shook. "Let's go," Emily shouted, grabbing Zuri's hand. They dashed toward the door, narrowly avoiding the aliens rushing to stop them. The ship trembled beneath their feet, and they could hear the sounds of panic behind them. "Where do we go now?" Zuri asked, its voice shaking. "We need to find the exit," Emily shouted, pushing through the chaos. They ran down the corridor, the alarms still blaring. The ship felt like it was coming apart, and they had to keep moving. As they reached another door, Emily pushed it open and stumbled into a small escape pod bay. "This is it," she cried, We can escape from here. They jumped into one of the escape pods and quickly closed the door. Emily frantically pressed buttons, trying to figure out how to launch it. Come on, she urged, her heart racing. Ziri watched the screens, pointing to the launch button. Press that one, it said. Emily slammed her hand on the button. The pod jolted as it began to separate from the ship. They could see the alien ship getting smaller as they moved away. We did it, Emily shouted, feeling a rush of relief. But then she remembered the other creatures trapped on the ship. What about them? She asked, worry filling her heart. Zuri looked determined. We will find a way to help them next. But first, we need to get to safety. As the escape pod flew away, Emily felt a mixture of emotions. They had escaped, but their journey was far from over. Together, they would find a way to rescue those left behind. With Zuri by her side, she knew they could face whatever challenges awaited them. The final battle. The escape pod soared through space, leaving the alien ship far behind. Emily and Zuri were safe, but the danger was not over yet. As they looked out the small window, Emily felt a sense of relief wash over her. They had escaped, but the thought of the other captives weighed heavily on her mind. What do we do now? Zuri asked, its voice shaky but determined. We can't just leave them there. Emily nodded. I know. We have to find a way to rescue them. She stared at the stars outside, trying to think. Suddenly, she remembered something. The escape pod has a communication system. We can call for help. Ziri's eyes widened with excitement. Yes, let's do it. Emily quickly turned to the control panel and began to search for the communication button. After a few moments of pressing buttons, she found it. I hope this works, she muttered, pressing the button. Mayday. Mayday. This is Emily from the escape pod. She shouted into the microphone. We need help. Aliens have taken over a ship, and they have captives. We need backup. After a moment of silence, a voice crackled through the speakers. This is Commander Reed. We hear you, Emily. Stay calm. We are sending a team to your location. Can you track the alien ship? Yes, I can. The ship is... Emily hesitated. I can see it on my radar. It's still in the same area. Good. Keep us updated on its location. We will arrive soon, Commander Reed replied. Emily felt a surge of hope. Thank you. We'll be ready, she said, releasing the button. Ziri looked excited. Now we wait. But what if the aliens find us first? Emily thought for a moment. We need to be prepared. Let's find some weapons in this pod, just in case. They searched the escape pod, rummaging through small compartments. Emily found a small laser gun and a few energy grenades. Ziri found a small knife. This is all we have, it asked, looking worried. It will have to do, Emily replied, trying to sound confident. We just need to hold them off until help arrives. As they waited, Emily kept an eye on the radar. The alien ship was still in the area. Suddenly, a blip appeared on the screen, moving toward them fast. Ziri, look, she shouted. The alien ship is coming back. Panic surged through them. What do we do? Ziri asked, gripping the knife tightly. We get ready for a fight, Emily said, her heart racing. She picked up the laser gun and checked it. Stay close to me. The alien ship approached rapidly, its dark form growing larger in the window. Emily's heart pounded as she saw the ship's weapons charging. They're going to attack, she yelled. Brace yourself, Ziri cried, crouching low. Suddenly, the alien ship fired, and their escape pod shook violently. Emily pressed a button to shield the pod, but the impact still sent them flying. Hang on, she shouted, trying to maintain control. Can you drive this thing? Ziri asked, panic in its voice. I can try, Emily replied, focusing on the controls. She maneuvered the pod, dodging another blast from the alien ship. We need to buy time until help arrives. As she fought to keep the pod steady, Emily felt a surge of determination. They had come too far to give up now. "We can do this, Ziri. Just keep your eyes on the ship." With quick reflexes, she aimed the laser gun out of the pod's window. She took a deep breath, then fired at the alien ship. A shot hit one of the engines, causing sparks to fly. "Yes, we got one," she cheered. But the aliens were not backing down. They returned fire, and the escape pod shook again. "This is crazy," Ziri yelled. "What if they board us?" Emily knew they had to keep fighting. "We can't let them." "Stay ready." Suddenly, the alien ship launched smaller crafts toward them. "They're sending fighters," Emily shouted, watching as two small ships approached rapidly. "Emily, we can't fight them all," Ziri cried, looking terrified. "We have to try," Emily replied fiercely. She quickly targeted one of the smaller ships and fired again. This time, she hit it directly, and it exploded in a burst of light. Ziri cheered, feeling a wave of hope. "You did it." But there was no time to celebrate. The second small ship began firing at them. "Get down," Emily shouted as she ducked behind the control panel. The pod shook violently as lasers hit it. "We need to fight back," Ziri urged. Emily took a deep breath. "Okay, I'll distract it, and you shoot." With quick movements, she maneuvered the escape pod, darting left and right. Ziri aimed the laser gun, waiting for the right moment. Finally, Emily shouted, "Now, shoot." Ziri pulled the trigger, and the laser beam hit the small ship, causing it to spin out of control. "We did it," Ziri shouted, excitement bubbling in its voice. But they could hear the alien ship approaching again. "We need to get out of here," Emily said, her heart pounding. Just then, a familiar voice crackled through the communicator. "Emily, this is Commander Reed. We are almost there. Hold on." "Thank you. We need backup now," Emily replied, her eyes darting around the cockpit. As they waited, the alien ship began to close in. It fired again, and this time, the escape pod shuddered violently. "They're right behind us," Ziri yelled. "Just a little longer," Emily cried, gripping the controls. She had to believe that help was coming. Suddenly, a fleet of ships appeared in the distance, rushing toward them. "They're here," Emily exclaimed, relief flooding her. "We made it." The arrival of the fleet turned the tide of the battle. The alien ship was caught off guard as the fleet surrounded it. Emily and Ziri watched in awe as the ships began to fire at the alien craft. "Let's get ready to escape," Emily said, her heart racing with excitement. They were going to make it out of this alive. As the fleet engaged in battle with the alien ship, Emily felt a surge of hope. They had fought bravely, and now they were about to win. Together, they would face whatever came next. Freedom and new beginnings. The battle raged outside the escape pod as Emily and Ziri watched in awe. The fleet of ships surrounded the alien craft, firing their weapons with precision. The bright lights and loud blasts filled the darkness of space. Emily could hardly believe they had made it this far. "Look at them go," Ziri exclaimed, its eyes wide with excitement. "They are fighting for us." Emily smiled, feeling a wave of gratitude for the brave crew members who had come to their rescue. "Yes, they're incredible." The alien ship was losing power, its weapons sputtering and failing. Emily felt a sense of victory swelling inside her. "We did it, Ziri. We helped them." But just as she began to celebrate, the alien ship unleashed one final desperate attack. It fired a powerful blast toward the fleet. "No," Emily shouted, her heart racing. The blast hit one of the ships, and it exploded in a burst of fire and debris. "They are fighting back," Ziri cried, fear creeping into its voice. Emily felt her heart sink. "They need to focus. We have to help them." She grabbed the laser gun and turned to Ziri. "Can you help me aim this? We need to shoot at the alien ship." Ziri nodded, its face determined. "I'll do my best." Emily steadied her hand and aimed the gun. With Ziri's help, they fired at the alien craft, trying to hit its vulnerable spots. Their shots joined the barrage of laser beams from the fleet. The alien ship shook and groaned as it took hit after hit. Emily could see the crew of the fleet working together, coordinating their attacks. "They're doing it," she cheered. Ziri smiled, feeling proud. "We are part of this fight." Suddenly, the alien ship began to break apart. Its engines exploded, and it started to drift helplessly. "We did it," Emily shouted, jumping up and down with joy. The fleet cheered over the comms, and Commander Reed's voice came through. "Great job, Emily. You helped us turn the tide. Now, let's get you home." Emily felt a rush of happiness. They were finally safe. She hugged Ziri tightly. "We made it. We're going home." As the fleet moved in to secure the area, Emily and Ziri watched as the alien ship slowly fell apart. The crew of the fleet began to search for survivors and gather the other captives. Soon, they received a signal from Commander Reed. "Emily, we are ready to bring you aboard. Prepare for docking." With a smile, Emily turned to Ziri. "This is it. We are going to be free." Moments later, the escape pod was docked safely with one of the larger fleet ships. Emily's heart raced as the door opened. She stepped out, hand in hand with Ziri. They were met by a group of soldiers, all looking relieved and proud. "You did great out there," one soldier said, giving Emily a thumbs up. "Thank you," Emily replied, her voice filled with joy. "We couldn't have done it without each other." Ziri looked around in wonder, its eyes sparkling with excitement. "This place is amazing," it said, marveling at the bustling activity on the ship. Emily smiled at her new friend. "It really is. We are safe now." As they walked through the ship, they saw other captives being welcomed and treated by the medical team. Emily felt a mix of emotions, happiness, relief, and sadness for those who had suffered. She wanted to help them too. "Ziri, we should find out how we can help the others," she suggested. Ziri nodded enthusiastically. "Yes, we can be friends to them, just like we were friends to each other." They approached the medical area and found a woman sitting alone. Her face was pale, and she looked scared. Emily gently sat next to her. "Hi, I'm Emily. We were kidnapped too. You're safe now." The woman looked at her, confusion in her eyes. "Really? I thought I was never going home." Ziri smiled warmly. "You are home now. We are all together." The woman started to cry, her relief spilling over. "Thank you. I thought I was alone." Emily wrapped her arms around her. "You're not alone anymore. We are all together." As they comforted the woman, Emily felt a sense of purpose. She wanted to help everyone who had been through what they had faced. Later that day, they gathered with the other captives in a large room. Commander Reed spoke to them, his voice firm yet comforting. "You are all heroes. Together, we fought back against a great evil. Now we will make sure everyone gets home safely." The room filled with applause and cheers. Emily felt proud to be part of this group. They had faced fear and danger, but now they were free. Ziri stood next to her, its eyes shining. "This is just the beginning, Emily. We will make new friends and go on new adventures." Emily grinned. "Yes, we will have many new beginnings." As they looked around the room, Emily felt hope blossoming in her heart. They had fought for their freedom, and now they could build a brighter future together. Hand in hand, Emily and Ziri stepped into the light of a new day, ready for whatever came next. Together, they were free.